Good evening, and welcome to another episode of The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Perry.
I'm your host, David. Tonight we're talking about Season 5, Episode 25, In the Cards. Before we continue, you can find us on Facebook, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube as The Fire Caves, a Star Trek Deep Space Nine podcast.
That is correct. And as I say every single week, you should find and follow us because we are great. We are awesome. We are a good time. Hopefully, you agree with that assessment that I've made every single week. And even if you don't agree, I'm going to keep saying it. So hopefully, eventually, you come around to my way of thinking. As David said, we are talking about the episode In the Cards. Very fun episode, different in its structure than we have seen in any Trek episode to date. So gonna get into that with you guys, of course. But before we do any of that, as always, like to check in. So, David, how has your week been?
Week's been good. There's a new video game I started playing last week. I had already been playing it by the time we did a recording last week, and I had said I would be starting my reading of the fall of the decline and fall of the Roman Empire. Uh, didn't get to that. Instead, was playing this game I got. Super fun. Stayed up way
And,
too late last couple nights
and the name of the
playing
game
it.
is.
It's a weird one. It's a weird name. It's called Unicorn Overlord. Yeah.
See, I was gonna say, dude, don't worry about weird. We're talking about a 30-year-old sci-fi show, but then you
Yeah.
said the name,
Yeah,
and
I
I
know. It's a weird one. Yeah, it's a fantasy setting, and I don't know why they called it Unicorn Overlord. To be frank, I mean, there's a
are there
unicorn
unicorns?
based. Well, yes, but it's a strategy based video game, and anyway, I think it's a badly named game. To be frank,
Hmm.
because it sounds so. Frank, it sounds girly, right? I mean, unicorns,
Well, no, I
woohoo,
mean it's not even about
ponies,
girly. I mean it's just it's an
Pegasuses.
unusual name for a game. I don't think I've heard of many
Well,
games
I
named
know it's
with
Unicorn
unicorn in the name.
Overlord. I don't know. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's a strategy-based video game. Or there's a real-time element to it, and then there's a turn-based element to it. It's been a blast. I've been just enjoying the heck out of it. So I've been playing it way too much. But yeah, that's what I've been doing other than work. How about you?
Um, well, I have kind of redoubled my efforts on like workouts and things like that. Work's been going very well. My schedule has changed because of my new position, so that's been a little bit of difficulty getting used to. But more for like family members than me. My daughter doesn't like the fact that I now finish a full hour later than I used to.
Ah,
But other than that, it's been actually I've had a lot more fun this week than I have previously.
okay.
I'm looking forward to doing a couple of new things here in this coming week. I have been reading the Expanse book. I'm on chapter 12 now, I think it was. So making my way through the book. And the other fun thing that I have been doing, since we're talking about games, is I have been playing Star Trek Online. I've really gotten into it. I know I've talked about it a couple times now on our
Right.
show, but now it's just like, it's kind of become its own thing. I've made connections. I've got a fleet going now. Various character development and ship design and all kinds of stuff that they allow you to do on the game. Now I'll stop there just to say with the ship design, it's basically they have their presets, but then you can mix and match or kit bash basically your ship pieces so that you can get
Mm.
your ship to look however you want and add colors and of course all the various tech and stuff that you can do with it. Um, my one complaint about the game, which I'm rapidly getting over, is the fact that they don't really offer you a whole lot of tutorials on how to do things. They kind of just throw you in and you just kind of have to figure it out for yourself or look for supplementary materials to explain what certain things are, what they do, how they interact, what kind of points you can get, so forth and so on. I've been so used to games that kind of spoon feed these things to you over the years that it's weird to kind of go back to a time when you didn't get that. And that was a lot of games that were like this. They didn't really tell you a whole lot. You
Mhm.
got the most bare minimum gloss over of fundamentals so you could move through the game. And then of course you just discovered things as you played. So as I have done things and got the ships that I want and the look that I want and all these kinds of bits and pieces here, I've actually come to appreciate it. But it was quite frustrating when I was getting started. So
Mm.
but it's a great way to pass the time. It's a free game. It
Yeah.
costs, so I mean, costs you nothing to play. Yeah. And even as just like if you just wanted to be a casual player, I would, if you're a fan of Star Trek and want to kind of immerse yourself in that a little bit, you totally should. In fact, I played a mission today where I was in Bozeman, Montana, and there's this whole part where if you've seen the First Contact movie, you know the significance of Bozeman, Montana. And there's this part where we were hanging out outside of a bar and you could hear the dialogue from the movie playing. So you could see inside the bar, but you could hear
Wow.
them. And so that was a nice little wink and nod to the attention to detail that I really appreciated. Plus, several of the actors have come back to continue to voice their characters in this game. So if you wanted to interact with Wesley Crusher, Dr. Crusher, 79, Janeway, Paris, Tuvok, they're all there. They're all
Right.
there.
Right.
So go ahead, check it out if you're interested. And hey, who knows? Maybe you'll find me on a mission somewhere and we can.
Gotcha.
But we're not here to talk about all of that. Of course, we are here to talk about Star Trek: Deep Space Nine. Um, again, I really think this was a fun episode, an unusually fun episode considering it's the second to last one in the fifth season. Um, you know, so and I was going to say that there's a little bit more of a different detail to it in the fact that basically what would typically be a B story is actually our A story in this one.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
we have the flip there. The B story, of course, normally would have been our A story. So we're going to get into
Yeah.
all now. Did you want to give the recap this week, or did you want me to do it?
Who did it last time? I'm happy
I
to do
think
it, but
I think you did it last time.
then go for it.
Okay, kind of because I wanted to do this one, but anyway,
Yeah, it's a good
um,
one. It's a good episode. I like this
yeah.
one. So yeah, go ahead.
So this episode starts with everyone's having dinner in Cisco's quarters. All the senior officers are there except for Dax, which I found a little bit strange considering this is a little bit of a semi-intimate setting, and Dax is one of his best friends. Why Dax wouldn't be there? It's kind of weird. Jake and Nog are there. They seem to be in the more serving role. They're clearing plates and whatever else, and everybody just seems to be really, really somber. Um, uh, Chief O'Brien eventually mentions that a ship has gone missing. This turns out to be the third or fourth ship that's gone missing in as many weeks. And it's all being attributed to the Dominion. The threat of the Dominion is growing,
Mhm.
and it's looking like war is going to be inevitable. They eventually, they try to change the subject, but it doesn't really work. Everybody decides, okay, it's just best to just go home. So they all leave. Jake and Nog later realizing that everybody was so upset, but in particular, Jake is concerned about his father. He's
Mhm.
saying, my father is the one that people typically go to when they need encouragement, when they need to pick me up, but the man himself is down. I want to do something to help him out.
Right.
They're in Quark's bar, and Quark mentions that there's going to be an auction later of several items that were found on a derelict ship somewhere. Um, Quark gives them a listing of the items that are going to be up for auction, and one of those items is a 1951 Willie Mays baseball card. And upon hearing about the baseball card, Jake gets really excited. His dad loves baseball. He wants to do something for his father, the guy who's taken care of him and done all these things for him his entire life. He sees a golden opportunity for him to do something for him. But Jake, being human, has no money. So this is where Nog comes in. Nog has been saving his Latinum, and here's an opportunity for Jake to get his hands on it to get this card for his father. He basically guilt trips Nog into giving over his latinum for this cause, citing the fact that if it wasn't for Captain Cisco, Nog wouldn't even be in the academy and on this path to a glorious life. So Nog agrees. They go to the auction. They see the card is being auctioned off, just as Quark had said, and it's in a lot of several items that are contained in this container. Um, they're pretty confident they're going to get it, and it does seem like they're going to get it. When at the last moment, this random, strange man eventually outbids them, and wins the whole lot. Takes
Mhm,
everything, the
mhm.
container, card, and all.
Right.
So now that he's utterly dismayed, Jake now becomes hyper fixated on getting this card. They go and run up to the man who we find out his name is Dr. Elias Geiger, and they want to make a deal with him. At first, Elias is like, "Nah, it's not for sale. Leave me alone." But then, after he, checks them out and finds out who they are, he's willing to make a deal. Instead of paying for it, he wants the boys to round up certain items that he needs for his research.
Mhm.
Um, Now, they at first they're hesitant, they're wanting to agree, but they want to find out what he's doing research on. It turns out he is researching immortality. He believes that the reason that people die is because they quite literally become bored to death. And so he has come up with a way to keep your cells excited so that you can, in theory, live forever. He wants the boys to round up some materials for him to complete his research. If they do this, in return, he'll give them the baseball cards.
Right.
So they go around, they're trying to find the items that he wants. At first, it seems rather difficult until Nog happens on this idea of, if we basically exchange favors with people who are in the positions to give us things that we want, we can get the card. We can get the items that Geiger needs to get the card.
Right.
So it's kind of a, this is the house that Jack built. If I do this for you, then you'll give me that, which I can trade for this, which will lead to this other thing, which will then give me the baseball card. This kind of scenario over and over again. They ask Chief O'Brien, they ask Dr. Bashir, they ask Major Kira, they ask Worf, and each of them in turn gives the boys a task to do in order to get the other thing they need to get to the card.
Right.
While all this is going on, our B story is also picking up. Kai Wynn has come to the station in order to meet with the representatives from the Dominion. Wei Yun, our Vorta handler, has shown up with a couple of Jem'Hadar guards in tow, of course, to discuss a potential non-aggression pact with Bajor.
Mhm.
Um, Kai Wynn is on the fence about taking this deal. She's aware that Captain Cisco, as emissary, originally opposed a similar agreement with Bajor and the Federation, saying that Bajor must stand alone. Cisco still stands by that advice. He tells her to stall while they try to figure out what else is going on with the Dominion.
Right.
And she kind of takes that to heart. She does have several of these meetings with the Dominion, and while they're all running around and doing their missions, the boys are giving this technology to Dr. Geiger, and the technology that he is setting up starts to make a lot of noise, and his quarters just happen to be under the quarters of our representative Dominion handler here again, Wei Yu.
Mm.
So the boys deliver half of the material. They're going to get the other half. And when they come back with the other half of the material, they find that Dr. Geiger and all of his equipment have vanished. They suspect Kai Wynn of the treachery. They imply that she's guilty, which of course she then tells Cisco about, who then dismisses the boys, puts them on basically house arrest. As they are leaving ops to go to their quarters now that they've been sentenced, they're beamed away and they are now on the Dominion ship, and that's where they're confronted by Wayun himself. And Wayun's like, "What are y'all up to? What are you doing? Unbeknownst to you, we've been keeping tabs on you, and we know that you've met with every single member of the senior staff, and you've met with Kai Wan, all while we're here and we're doing these negotiations." Now, of course, we know why they were meeting with them, but to the ever watchful and suspicious Dominion, you can kind of see why he would think something was going on. Now, Jake, who has become again consumed with getting this card, but also with not telling anybody why what he's up to, has
Right.
decided to spin another tale of what they're really up to. He
Right.
tells Wei Yun this convoluted story about Willie Mays being a time traveler, and they need the card as evidence. Wei Yun doesn't really buy them, but he eventually it doesn't buy that story, but he believes the first story they told when they were like, "We don't know anything about anything else." um, they it's revealed that Wei Yun was the one who caused Dr. Geiger to disappear, and they bring him out. They see he's still alive. He then tells Wei Yun eventually about what his research is about, which seems to intrigue Wei Yun, who then dismisses the boys and gives them the card so they can leave and go on their way while he discusses genetics and whatever else with Dr. Geiger. Um, the Bajor does not sign any treaty or pact at this time, and the episode ends basically with everybody is a little bit happier. And no one can really seem to attribute why they're happier. But again, we know everyone's happier because the boys have gone around and basically done all these favors for people, which has made them in a lighter, more carefree mood.
Yeah.
Um, so that is essentially the episode. It's an interesting way for the B and A stories to tie together. Again,
Yeah.
I don't think they've ever really done it that way before.
Right.
So I really enjoyed that tie-in. But
Mhm.
yeah, first time viewer, what did you think of this episode?
Yeah, this is a really good episode. It's funny. There are a lot of funny little scenes, little moments. Jake and Nog are on. They're probably the most on point I've seen them. Like them together as a odd couple type situation, especially when they're in their quarters and Nog is listening to the Klingon opera music on behalf of Worf because apparently Worf listens to it at 82 decibels, and there's some sort of minor thing he needs to like edit out of the song. There's some sort of, and so Nog's listening to it at full blast. Kira has, as a favor, has Jake writing her speech for her, and that speech is he
Well
tries to write a
received.
funny line. And so Jake wants to interrupt Nog listening to the music at full blast to run a line by him and see if this line is funny. And of course, Nog is annoyed because he's having to listen to the music. He's being interrupted. He recommended that they what Nog recommended they do was that they would tell the people they need the favors from, like we need these things from certain people. We just tell them that we're running favors for someone who will get us the baseball card. So if you'll help us do this thing, then we can get the baseball card. So if they would just tell like O'Brien, hey, we need the power cell, then maybe he would just give it to them. But Jake doesn't want the secret of what's going on to get to his father, word of mouth pass along. So he's trying to keep it on the down low. And so instead, Nog once again saves the day. Instead of going with plan A, Nog's plan B is trade favors, as you've already mentioned, which is a brilliant plot. That's why it's so fun because we get to know a little bit about all the characters except Dax. Like I don't think Dax was in
Yeah,
this episode.
she's not in the entire episode. We never see her.
That's the weirdest thing. I don't know
And
why
there's
she's
no
gone.
explanation for it. There's no explanation for why Dax is not there. She's not
Yeah.
on assignment, on a mission, and there's also no behind the scenes reason. No one knows why Terry Farrell wasn't in the episode. She just
Oh my
wasn't.
gosh. Huh. Well, anyway, um, so there are a lot of funny little moments. Starting off where Jake wants Nog to help him buy the baseball card at the auction, and Nog's giving a hard time for not having any money. We don't live in a money-based society. We humans, we have higher purposes, and so Nog says, "Well, you don't need money up until you need mine." Great line. He says, "Let me teach you about incentive-based economics," which I thought was just fantastic because I'm an unapologetic capitalist. There's some people out there who are like, capitalism is bad. Like, okay, everything can be made bad if you do it wrong. Like driving a car is a good thing, but if you drive your car badly, you cause problems. So capitalism has its place. If it gets outside of its place, it can be bad. But this is a perfect example of Nog is right. There are reasons why
Mm,
money is sometimes useful in
yeah,
transactions, and having no money can cause your own issues. So I love it. I was like, go Nog. Go Ferengi. You guys are right, at least in this aspect. If you want
To this
something for
particular
something,
degree,
sometimes
yes, but,
yes.
while I obviously enjoy capitalism, I do believe that we have sometimes allowed it to run amok, and things
Oh,
shouldn't be,
I don't have any
certain things
problem
shouldn't be the way they are, but yeah.
if you want to prune the tree, if you want to cut down a few limbs here and there and say the tree needs to be, cared for, don't cut the tree down. The tree provides shade. The tree provides fruits every now and then. Don't
Uh
cut the whole damn thing down because it's
My
got a little
problem
problems with.
is Well, my problem is that we've got all these system to continue your analogy there. They've removed the tree that was dropping free fruit and are now overcharging us for the same fruit that we did have for free before. So
Yeah,
where
yeah.
where you had an
All
orange tree in
analogies
every
break down
yard,
eventually.
yeah, where you had an orange tree in
Yeah.
every yard, they were all removed so that you could go down the street and buy oranges from one person. So it's the problem.
Anyway.
Cut down for
Yeah.
health reasons. Anyway, we're getting off the subject here. We're way off.
Yeah, we are for sure. Anyway, point being is that Nog and Jake, their interaction is funny. These characters have been friends since season one. They've been
Yeah.
together as buddies since season one. So we're seeing them as young men, as guys trying to make their way in the world. They're still childish. The Jake is still, he won't just. I think the mature thing would have been to do what Nog said the first time. Hey, I'm going to do this thing. Please don't tell anyone. Please keep it a secret because I'm trying to keep it a secret from my dad. I don't want it to get out. And I just needed this thing or that thing. Now, I think that the part of the reason they were successful is because they actually, by doing the favors, they actually did give the other people an incentive to help them. So I do think the plot, or so plan B did work, even maybe even better than plan A, as Nog originally suggested. But
Yeah.
that was a lot of fun seeing them interact with the other characters. I mean, there was the scene with O'Brien. I felt like the writing could have used a second go through, or maybe the direction was a little off because O'Brien seemed a little too okay with it at first. But Dr. Bashir's was funny. You couldn't drag me away from my terminal right now, but I want my teddy bear back. So if you get me my teddy bear back, you'll have some your solution, your 5 liters solution. So yeah, it was a lot of fun. And then of course the guy that they're helping is trying to come up with some sort of immortality machine by rejuvenating the cells. In particular, the cells get bored and so just basically die off. They die of boredom, which causes you to die. So if you can just keep your cells entertained and interested in doing something for 8 hours a day, then you'll live forever. And Jake says he had me going there for a minute, and I was like, he kind of had me going there for a
That
minute.
so that was actually the entire point. They wanted this to sound a little bit, plausible right up until, he kind of drops the other shoe, as it were.
Yeah.
So he's trying to save us from what he calls cellular ennui, which again just means
Yes.
your cells get bored, literally bored to death, and that's why you die. So the first part that sounded really interesting and everything else was basically saying we're going to keep your cells energized. You need more energy. We're going to focus on the mitochondria of the cell to infuse them with this external energy to keep them from having to burn through all of their stores. But in addition to that, we're also going to entertain your cells so that they're not bored, and then you'll be able to live forever. And we see him use this chamber at one point, and he comes out of the chamber and he says, yes, cells definitely energized, but I experienced a little boredom around hour 5.
Yeah.
So, it's just, it's strange to say the least, which,
Right.
you've got to work pretty hard to make the scenario and dialogue sound strange, even in a Trek episode, which is already
Right.
giving you some
Yeah.
quite unusual dialogue.
Oh yeah, he
Um,
was he was going hard with the techno babble there at one point. The biogenic energy something 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 something. It's like what? Okay. But yeah, I mean, he
yeah,
seemed to be on to something because he was able to get the. I mean, his machines made a lot of noise, which caught the
which
Dominion's
got the
attention.
attention of Wayun. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
when the
Um,
Wayun first dragged the boys in, he said you guys were doing something with certain particle waves. So maybe there's something there. Maybe it's misdirection. Um, you guys were using certain particle waves, but that doesn't actually mean anything.
yeah.
But yeah,
So I just like to think that I don't. Um, I just think that the materials that he was using was just putting off enough energy and making a loud enough noise to pique their interest. Not that the science had any actual relevance. So
right.
another favorite scene for me was when the boys when Geiger goes missing. So the boys go to Odo to report him missing, and at first Odo is taking them seriously. He's looking up Dr. Geiger. There's nothing anywhere of Geiger in the system. He didn't arrive on any ship, whatever. But then as Jake continues to talk to explain who Geiger is, Odo's like, get out of my office. Stop
Yeah,
making stuff up. If you do it again, I'm going to bring you up on charges.
yeah.
So,
That was also pretty funny because it was a jump cut. We go from in his office to they're leaving, and he's like, "We're is he really going to throw us in jail for filing false claims?" It's like, oh man, I kind of wish I'd seen Odo go over the top a little bit. That'd have been funny, but
it's a
oh
nice
well.
reminder that, to a lot of them, these guys are, I mean, despite their, changes in age and stature, they still view them as kids,
Mhm.
and while initially, yes, they will take them seriously, it's like, okay, we're going to dismiss you boys because you're being ridiculous now. you know I
Right.
wish we had seen more of this, wait, not more of, but the actual scene where Kai Wen told Cisco about her son or about his son and Nog's accusation. But
Yes.
once again, Avery Brooks just ate that whole scene up when we, cut back to
Yeah.
them and he's chewing them out for
Yeah.
having accused her. Going from,
Yes.
you know, disciplinarian father to disciplinarian captain in the same moment, in the
Yeah.
same room with these two sitting next to each other. I loved it because Jake's like trying to plead with his dad, and he's like, not a word out of you. And then every time Nog says something, he's dressing him down as his commanding officer. And I'm like, man,
Yeah.
you worked this out well.
I
Like
don't
I
want
like
to hear it.
the way,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, I want to separate myself from Jake here, and he's like, stand down. I don't know what he said exactly, but um, and
Oh
he
yeah.
actually yelled at them to get out when he
Mhm.
was done because
He
Jake.
dismissed them both.
Yeah, yeah, because Jake makes the pretty big mistake, I would say. At that point, he should have come clean about what they were trying to do and how things kind of got out of control a little bit. But he says, "Oh no, we were just drunk
Yeah,
at
we
the
were drunk.
bar,"
Yeah.
and that makes his father even more disappointed if he had confessed the truth. Which by the end of the episode, they know what we see that he gets the card, that he's happy about the card, and
And I
he
would like
hugs
to think
Jake.
that he
So
did, yeah, I would like to think that he did clarify with his father that, hey, we weren't actually drunk. I was covering because I didn't want you to know I was doing this other thing. Even though we
right,
don't
I wanted
see
to
that
make this a
happen in,
surprise.
yeah.
I didn't want to get your hopes up, or well, yeah, it just as Jake keeps saying, he feels like it's fated that he's gonna get this card,
Well, Jake
which
becomes
gets him so
obsessed.
obsessed with. Yeah,
Yeah,
he's
Jake
obsessed with
becomes
it. Yeah,
obsessed with getting this card. He definitely decides that it's got to happen. There's just no other way around it. It's got to happen,
right,
and especially the more favors that they trade to work to getting the card, then yeah, the more again his obsession kind of mounts.
right.
Um, but let's shift gears for a quick second and let's talk about our B plot here a little bit more. So
Which would have
because
normally been the A plot,
which
as
would
you
have,
mentioned.
yes,
Yep.
exactly. So we're seeing that everybody is being affected by the series of losses that we're attributing to the Dominion. There's no actual confirmation these are happening because of the Dominion, but it's heavily suspected. Um, and now here comes the Kai, and she's gonna do this non-aggression pact potentially. We don't see that it's signed here, but at least they're stalling for time. It seems she's taking Cisco's advice to stall while they try to figure out
Right.
something else. Um, Now, what would this mean if they sign a non-aggression pact? Because they're not in the Federation, but they are a protected Federation world, or a Federation protected world, I should say, because they're
Mhm.
not in the Federation. So if they sign a non-aggression pact with the Dominion, would this force Starfleet to withdraw from Deep Space Nine? Because Deep Space Nine is not a Federation station. It's a Bajoran station, but the administration working it is Federation. So
Yeah,
would this mean that they would have to withdraw?
it's a great question. I'm sure there are real life examples that would answer that question for us.
That's what I
Uh,
was trying to think of because I don't know exactly. I mean, beyond like with the words, I don't know exactly how a non-aggression treaty, pact, whatever you want to call it, would work. So, I mean, just but kind of on a very broad, basic level, non-aggression means these two have entered into a contract saying they won't attack each other.
right.
You know, it's
Yeah.
not necessarily a total peace treaty, but it's kind of
Right.
a mutual understanding so that I guess in the event that they go to war with someone around them, that their group, their interior is safe.
Right. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing that's important here is that because Bajor sits literally at the mouth of the wormhole, it's a passage from the gamma quadrant to the alpha quadrant. So the Dominion, it's curious that the Dominion hasn't been sending ships through more often. Let's put it this way: as far as we know, the station would notice every time something came through the wormhole.
Mhm,
So when the Dominion came through and went to Cardassia, they
mhm.
didn't attack the station. They didn't attack Bajor. But if there was ever truly a massive buildup, a fleet coming through, we can imagine that Deep Space Nine would be, literally the front lines of some sort of conflict were it to truly break out. So, yes, the Dominion is trying to neutralize Bajor and the station on some level. What's curious is how would that really work out? Because obviously, if as Cisco says to Kai Wynn, you have two options. You have either the Federation can't defend you and you're annihilated because we're obviously on our back foot. The Dominion is definitely stronger than us, or you're the first ones or the next ones in line for the getting conquered by the
Yeah.
Dominion. You're just passively being conquered as opposed to them aggressively capturing the planet with like a force, which makes sense. You can just see that as soon as the Dominion gets their fleet in through the wormhole, the Bajor is probably not going to be in a place to resist. They're just going to have to acquiesce just by force of the situation they're in. And so the question will become at that point, do the Federation officers answer to Bajor? Do they answer to the Federation? What's the
Well,
situation
I
there?
mean,
And that's why,
they would always answer to the Federation. It's been made clear on numerous occasions that in the event of anything like that, they would respond to Starfleet. So if Starfleet
well,
orders that they pull out, they've got to go.
well, that's certainly true. My point, though, that's probably what will happen. My point, though, is if Bajor signed a non-aggression pact, and they're in the meantime, the Federation was still, Cisco and the crew were still running the station, and somehow they got cut off from the Federation. They couldn't retreat. There's an attack going on. Do they commandeer the station on behalf of the Federation, saying we were here anyway? We're gonna fight till we die. Fight to our dying breath. Um, we're part of the Federation. We're at war. Even if Bajor is not, we were in effective control of it anyway. I mean, obviously, our Cisco and the gang are not that type to just go, cowboy and do their own thing. So I don't think that would happen necessarily. But yeah, that's the problem that Bajor has is they are literally on the doorstep of the Dominion coming in and doing something, and they can either trust the Federation or they can just kind of willingly submit to the Dominion before anything breaks out. And yes, Kai Wynn asked that directly to Cisco. She's like, "If you would you promise to defend us against all other, even if that meant sacrificing other planets, even Earth?" And Cisco was like, "I can't make that claim." And she said, "I wouldn't
Mhm.
trust you if you did." So she knows what's going on. But Kai Wynn is an interesting character because from season one to now, she has changed. She still, as she when she first shows up on the
Mm,
station, she still dismisses Kira in a very abrupt manner. "You may go, child." as opposed to if she just said thank you.
Right. She's missing all the niceties.
Yeah,
If she had done some of these pleasantries, whatever, she would be a lot less terrible.
right,
But it's because she doesn't. It's because she's so condescending all the time, and
right,
because of the way that she is ruthless in the implementation of her office, that we have problems with her.
right.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
she's humbled herself to Cisco because he's the emissary, and in her humbling herself to him, she's actually grown as a character. She's more willing to think about consequences. She's more hesitant to make rash decisions. But she hasn't yet humbled herself to the point of being generous and kind to people like Kira, and so it still rubs us the wrong way when we see those scenes, and why she's still a bit grating, even though she has improved. So, is she going to still be a great character by the time we get to the end? Will she kind of fall back on old ways? I mean, as Cisco says, we're not at crisis point yet,
Mm.
but we're about to be, I imagine, because next episode is the finale of season 5. So, can
So
very
here's
well
my
imagine something's going to happen. So,
my thoughts that I've always had, and as far as I know, this is never confirmed. Um, the reason that she goes and seeks Cisco's advice here, Kai Wynn, is so that in the end, no matter what the situation, um,
she can
well,
blame
not necessarily,
Cisco.
yeah, basically, no matter not necessarily matter what the situation, but especially if it goes bad, no
Yes,
matter what,
yes.
she has Cisco as her scapegoat. Because see, if she doesn't sign the non-aggression pact and they come in and conquer Bajor, she can say, "I went to see the emissary and he told me XYZ thing. I
Right,
did what he said, and now they're here. So don't blame me,
right,
blame the emissary." And then if she does sign it and they come in and they're the benevolent overlords, but still overlords, and other people are complaining, she can be like, "Hey, I went to see the emissary. I
that's
asked him."
true. Ah,
So either way, she gets to say
yeah.
this was his fault.
Harry, your dark heart, your dark
I
thoughts
don't
win the
like her.
day.
I don't like her.
You're
All
probably
right.
right.
I don't like her. So
Maybe you know the. I mean, you've already seen the whole show. Maybe she
well,
does that later.
that's why I've said that even though I've seen the show, none of this was ever confirmed. So like there are certain things that play out that you could see this either way, but there's never ever a time directly that they say, yeah, that's what happened. But so it's just
Right.
been in my head as this is one of those things.
Mm,
So because she's very much committed, like she wants us to think of herself as, you know, committed to Bajor, but she's
right.
not committed to Bajor. She's committed to her own power.
Right.
And if there's one thing that Kai Wynn, Vedic Wynn, Win Adami, whatever you want to call her, if there's one thing that she's proven over and over again is that she will do whatever it takes to maintain her own power and
Right.
to also not take blame for things. Let's not forget that when she tried to have Barial assassinated, she had her patsy all lined up for it, and she was all, I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't know who this person is. I didn't
Right.
do any of these things, even though she was the hand,
Yeah.
the
That was
guiding hand.
season 1, man. Woo.
Yeah.
You're going back.
So hey, I don't like her. I remember people I don't like. So yeah. Um she I again she's a great character to hate. She's got that love to hate thing down. Louise Fletcher is a fantastic actress. She does such a great job with this character. To think that Kai Wynn only appears in 19 episodes over a 7-season series and is so memorable, so impactful, just goes to show you the power of her acting ability. And she's
Yeah.
still one of the most hated characters out of Trek. Anybody who's watched Star Trek, you ask them who's your favorite villain. She's up there.
Yeah.
If she's not number one, she cracks your top three easily. So
Well, she does a great thing too, where she grabs the ear of a person very
yes,
awkwardly,
checking
suddenly,
their
no
gauging their paw.
forewarning. Yeah, and she does it, of course, to Cisco right before she like agrees to follow his advice. Um, and then she also does it with Wayoon when he's like, "Oh, we have so much in common." She's
We're
like, "We
just
have nothing
alike.
in common."
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
just alike. She's like,
we're
no, we're
nothing
not.
alike. Yeah,
We're nothing alike.
yeah. So she's definitely, and when you're on her side, when she's
Ugh, I
getting
just
all
hate.
sassy.
I hate when I agree with her.
You
It, it, I've got to find a way to correct the wrong because there is something wrong in the universe when you think that Kai Wynn is right.
Yeah, the enemy of
Yeah.
my enemy is my friend. No, no,
Nah, she's
stop,
still my
no.
enemy. She's still my enemy, just not today. She's still my enemy.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, that plot line was good because it's definitely it pays off earlier this
Hmm.
season when she says to Cisco, like, he's all like, "Well, you guys need to get close to the Federation," and she's like, "You are the one who torched that option like 6 months ago. You torpedoed it directly, and let me quote you to you.
Hmm.
You said
Let
Bajor
me
needs to
add.
stand alone. Here
Let
we
me add
are."
insult to injury. I'm going to throw your words in your face. Yeah,
Yeah,
eat
and
that up.
Cisco's like, "Oh yeah, I did say that, didn't I?"
But she says some other things here too that kind of clue you into the fact that she's gone down the wrong path. She talks about how she has tried to pray to the prophets to get them to give her guidance. Her prayers went unanswered. She even went to the temple of the orb of wisdom, got nothing. So as we've seen from all the other orb experiences that have been had by Kira, Cisco, Barial, anybody, it seems like just about anybody can open an orb and have some kind of experience. Heck, even the Grand Nagus got to use an orb and was changed and had to be changed back. So it's a bit telling that this person
Mhm.
who's supposed to be the spiritual leader of the people whom these orbs were created for gets nothing.
Right.
Zilch.
Yeah.
I mean, something must be broken in this person in order to for them to turn their backs on her so spectacularly, to shut her out
Yeah.
so phenomenally.
Well,
You know.
the other explanation for that, I was thinking about this as she was talking about it. Um, one of people's responses as Christians to like praying to God and asking for like direction is that and actually this is something that came up that I was thinking about because it's actually a line from uh Evan Almighty, I think it is. It's just the sequel to Bruce Almighty. Bruce Almighty, Steve Carell had a famous scene where he does the
Mhm.
scene, and but in the sequel, it's called Evan Almighty, and it has Steve Carell again, and he's now the main character. And Morgan Freeman's playing God, and he's saying to one of the characters, like, when people pray for courage, maybe God gives them an opportunity to be courageous. When they ask for love, God gives them opportunity to express love. Not that he gives you an emotion, he gives you an opportunity to do the thing. And so maybe I was just thinking of that scene. I don't know why, like, it was on my YouTube feed recently. It just popped up, and so I was thinking of that scene from that movie when watching this scene in Deep Space Nine. Of like, maybe the prophets are like, okay, I mean, like, we don't need to give you any special wisdom or knowledge. We have our emissary in place. Things are going to go the way we expect them to.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
curious,
I
curious.
I like that. I like how you
Yeah,
explain that.
yeah.
You're wrong. Tywin is evil, and they've turned their backs on her. But I like how you
See,
explain
this is
that.
why you and I are great. You're the nope. She's evil. There's
No,
nothing. They don't
mm-mm,
have anything for her. I'm
she's
like, well,
terrible.
maybe,
No,
maybe.
she's awful. So that's why. That's why. Your
uh,
reasoning sounded very nice, and if she was
yin
like
and
a normal
yang.
person,
I
if
don't
she
know
was
which
a
one's
normal
yin,
person,
which one's yang, but yeah.
if she was a
Uh,
normal person, I might have agreed with you. But no, she's the devil, and that's why they didn't answer her. So I'm not. Nothing will
oh
dissuade me. That's
gosh.
why. That's why.
Yeah.
She's awful. She's
Yeah.
awful.
You're probably right. That's probably the true
Mm.
explanation. But I was trying to think of the positive one. So, yeah.
So before we can close out the evening, we have to turn our attention to, of course, the main focus of the episode, which is the 1951 Willie
Mhm.
Mays baseball card.
Ah,
Um,
yes.
so let me ask you, as a kid, did you collect baseball cards or any kind of cards? Baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever. Were you one of those kids that did that?
Not sports. I did get into Pokemon a little late. I was excuse me. When I was in elementary school. Gosh, the other kids were starting to get into Pokemon. And by the time I finally got into Pokemon, they'd moved on to Dragon Ball Z. so I was always behind the times with the rest of the kids in my elementary school. Very important time of my life. Later on in middle school, it was Yu-Gi-Oh because it was again a card trading card game that it was going on. I never got into Magic the Gathering. By that point, I was kind of done with card games and collecting, but not sports cards. How about you?
No, I didn't do sports cards. I didn't do any card collecting.
Stamps?
I was aware. I didn't do stamps. My grandfather had a stamp collection for a while there.
I don't understand
Um,
that one. I have to say,
no,
in what
stamps and
it,
coins. Stamps and he had
I can
stamps and
kind of understand
coins.
coins, but yeah,
But I did not get into it. I remember kids that had them, various baseball cards and so forth. I remember there was a gum back then. It was called Big League Chew, and it came in this package like that, and it was like a silver package, and it used to have like a cartoon drawing of a baseball player on it, and you opened it up, and it was gum, but it had been like shredded to look like shredded tobacco, and it came in different flavors and like that, and you're supposed to stuff in your mouth. I was like, what an interesting way to introduce tobacco addiction to children. So I don't even know if they still make that. I'm assuming they do. I haven't seen it, but then again, I don't go looking for gum and candy and stuff these days like I did as a kid.
right.
But no, I never really collected all those things. I do remember when the other cards started through school and everything, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, all that. I never did any of those either. There was one thing that I was like briefly but intensely into, and they were this little circular disc called Pogs, and the whole point was you could get like stacks of them, and they would be little pieces of thin cardboard, and they had different colors and designs and whatever else. But those are the pogs. But the things that you really wanted and that you collected were the slammers. The slammers were these big silver dollar shaped heavy metal pieces, and the way you played the game was you took the pogs and you arranged them in a certain order, and you were playing against somebody, and you took your slammer and you had to slam it down as hard as you could on top of a pile of pogs, and the number of pogs that were basically exploded from your slam, you won. And so you were trying to amass a large collection of pogs, but it was the slammers that you were really collecting. They came in all kinds of colors and designs, and some of them could get to be kind of pricey, especially for a kid. I know my older sister and I were really into those, and she had this little um, like a booklet, like we used to keep CDs in like a CD book. They had one
Mhm.
of those for slammers. You could just go through and flip through and see all the slammers that people had. I have no idea where any of that stuff is today. The thing that just had such an intense fascination at that one point in my life, but that was probably the only thing that I ever really got into, um, like hardcore collecting. It wasn't until years later that I started to do like little like ship models and stuff like that,
Right.
and I have some of those still, but that's been more of an adult project than coming out of childhood. So
Yeah.
I never really did the collections. I
Well, as you can see behind me, I like to collect Transformers, so
mm,
and
and this
Legos and all kinds of fun stuff.
and there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. Like that's the thing too. They always talk about not having toys and putting those things down. I find that they're a great. I'm not going to say distraction, but it's a great hobby to have as a way to kind of free up your mind when all you do is you watch the terrible news, and all the horrible stuff that's going on, and you got your family woes and work troubles and everything else. It's nice to have something that you can just kind of turn your brain off from all that other stuff and just focus on putting these things together or arranging them or whatever it is that you're doing. You're not hurting anyone, so I mean,
Right.
what's the big deal? I like finding out about people's various collections, stuff like that. I know I've seen online, you know um especially with Star Trek, there's a lot of people who have the various ship designs, and um, we've talked about Eagle Moss before, had helped people to establish collections and
Mhm.
things like that. Um, Now, I did want to mention the Willie Mays baseball card once more because that card at the time was the 1951 Willie Mays Bowman card that was featured in the episode. At the time, it had a value of around $4,000. Do you want to know how much that card is valued at today?
10,000.
Keep going.
50.
Keep going.
75.
No, you overshot a little bit. So, according to what I found just in doing some research there, the lowest amount that I found that the card was worth was about $7,000, but the highest that I found was $70,000. Currently
Wow.
being traded on eBay, of course, of all places. $70,000 for the card. Now,
Wow.
typically, cards in this lot, whatever, they tend to go for around 15 to 24,000, depending on the rarity of the card. You can get obviously up there, and if it's featured in anything. But um, yeah, so if you're a person who collected any of those things, or if you have some kind of collection, who knows? You might be sitting on your own little retirement
Gold
nest
mine.
egg.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe go
Yeah,
check
I
those
wouldn't be
check
able to
those out.
eat or pay rent for a full year if I bought that thing.
You would die, but you would have a very lovely Willie
Yeah, like
Mays
Cisco, I
car
would be able to put it in a little plastic shiny thing and look at it every once in a while and be happy.
until the batteries ran out, and then you couldn't afford to get batteries to replace it. So
Exactly. But I don't need money, right? Because we're in the future. So
yeah. Well, see, that's the other part of it too. So in the future, it's like I understand why Cisco liked it because he had an interest in um, baseball. But since all of your needs are met because you live in a society that provides for you, not to mention you all have replicators which will make whatever you want.
so we have to go back real quick. So how do they support this non-monetary based society? Do they have robotics, automated robotics that
Mm,
just do take care of all the
it's
basic necessities? Is that what's going on or
I
what?
it's never, as far as I understand it in Trek, it's never explained how we make that jump from needing money to everything to not. But the only thing that seems to be agreed upon is the thing that brings about that revolution is the invention and the perfection of replicator technology.
Right.
Once that occurs, the waste is eliminated because we're now able to take garbage and turn it into something usable by
Right.
being able to break that matter down and redistribute it and reincorporate it into literally anything.
Right.
That is what makes that's the major hurdle that starts to make money obsolete. How that's implemented, they don't say.
Right.
Where it starts, it's never said. Any of that stuff, but I would imagine that it starts by having basic needs taken care of with replication. The
It would
fact that
have
you
to
can,
on some level,
yeah,
yeah.
the fact that you can instantly provide food, clothing, and medicine to anyone,
And
that
presumably
that's got to
housing
be,
on
well,
almost
that
immediate
would, I would say
levels.
that
Yeah.
would be the I would say that would be the next step,
Okay.
but the fact that you can, because
Phase
the
two.
first thing you have to take care of, right, is the health and well-being of the individual. If you can take a starving person and then guarantee them that they will have permanent access to clean food and water, clothing, and medical supplies, that then propels them into the next phase of seeking, fulfillment, satisfaction, which is jobs, which is housing, and things along those lines. But you got to take care of those first ones.
Right.
So, and with the state of the world and the number of people in it and trying to implement things, that in itself would take a very long time to implement to any level of sustainability.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah,
I
that's
wonder
the
if it's
first
like
part.
some sort of like if hydrogen molecules are the smallest form of atom, you just like have a bunch of hydrogen molecules around and you just find ways to you take the electrons and the protons and the neutrons and you can just recombine them however you want a million times over and boom, you got food, you got clothes, you
So
got that's how
so
I would imagine it works.
So, from my understanding of the replicator, it is that they break everything down into its base components, and then the system, it turns everything into a pattern, kind of like a
Energy.
drawing, right? Well, no, like, so, and then it applies the energy to the drawing to get the thing,
Oh,
right? So, think of it this way: somewhere at some point someone has made made water, or has scanned a glass of water. We know what the precise composition of a glass and water is.
Right.
So now we recognize what that pattern is. It's drawn up into a complex mathematical formula, whatever, and it says you need precisely this number of hydrogen, this number of oxygen, so forth and so on. So then when you go to replicator and you select water, the system automatically knows to combine those things in this precise amount and measurement, and
Right.
it takes other things and breaks them down because everything's got oxygen on some level, everything's got carbon, everything. So it breaks them apart and then recombines it to whatever it is that you asked for and spits it
Right. So
out.
you would say that it breaks it down to the elements that we would know as the periodic table. My
Right.
point is that if hydrogen is the most basic form of molecule, you could recombine hydrogen molecules at your will, then you could make nitrogen out of hydrogen. You could make gold out of out of
Yeah.
hydrogen. But like gold pressed latinum, like latinum is somehow different. It somehow doesn't fit with that stereotype, which is why it's
Yeah,
still
the
valuable.
latinum, yeah, the latinum has a structure that can't be reproduced
Replicated.
with any combination of known elements.
Right. There's something
So
special about it. Something
yeah,
unique and rare, which is why it's
yeah,
still valuable as a monetary exchange value.
yes,
Which is still, I mean, I tell you, it's all fascinating. That's why I think,
yeah,
I imagine why people love Star Trek. It's like,
hmm,
how does it work? And then people, hammer away at it. Like, how does it work? Let's figure out how it
exactly.
might work.
And
And
then before you know it, that's why we have cell phones and the fast computers and 3D printers and all the rest of it. It's because somebody somewhere watched it on a sci-fi show, probably Star Trek, and said, "I want that." I
I
don't
want
know how, but I
someone to
want
make it.
that. So yeah.
So where are
So
my
who knows?
replicators at? That's it's been 50
Hey,
plus years that I haven't got
we
my replicators at.
hey, you know what? Some things take a little bit more. We don't have transporters yet either. So, you know, but somewhere
Beam me up,
someone is working
Scotty.
on, yeah, somewhere someone is working away at it, and we
Uh,
might not see it in our
and there's
lifetime.
probably some guy who says that, yeah, that whole entertain the cells idea makes a lot of sense.
Uh-huh.
Oh my
Somewhere
gosh.
some guy is
There is
laying the groundwork for
uh
cellular ennui studies.
oh my gosh.
So,
It just, yeah, that's making me go, whoa. uh,
oh man. Um That is true. So it is. So now that we're rounding it out, we'll turn this over to some things that have been said in our comments here. The guy who plays Dr. Geiger later goes on to play Lieutenant Durst in an episode of Star Trek Voyager. Um, Lieutenant Durst doesn't meet the greatest end. So
Ryan Markinson is his name.
yes, uh, Durst gets murdered for his face. So
For
um,
his face. I
yes.
don't tell me anything else. I have to see that
That's all
episode. Oh my
that's all I'm
goodness.
gonna say, yeah. Someone really wanted his face. So there you go. That's all I'll
Wow.
say. Go find it, go watch it, and enjoy.
Okay then.
Now,
uh,
another bit of headcanon that was also mentioned here, and this is one that I actually share. So we'll go back to the very beginning of this episode in which we're seeing the guys at Quarks and are hearing about the auction, and it's a bunch of items that are being auctioned off for, they said they were found from a derelict ship or whatever it was.
uh,
If you remember from the Star Trek Next Generation episode, The Most Toys, there was a collector in that episode named Kivas Fajo who tried to collect data. He liked to collect rare and unusual things,
oh,
so
that's
he
right.
tried to collect Commander data.
That's right.
In that episode, he featured a lot of unique, unusual, one of a kind things, and one of them also happened to be a baseball card that he had, especially encased in this um, shelving, which when you open the door on the container, it emitted the scent of bubblegum. Now, as far as I know, um, I don't think they said who was on the card that he had, who was on the baseball card. But the head canon that has been shared, the one that I share, someone else in our
It's Vincent.
chat here,
Vincent's
Vincent.
the one
Yes,
who
and I
won
was going to
the
say
yeah.
yes. and some others have shared with me online has been,
Okay. Others have said it too. Okay, got
yes, thank you. I was trying to get it out and you were cutting me off. But anyway,
it. Sorry.
has been that the things that pop up in this auction are from Fajo's ship, which when in the Most Toys episode, when Data beams back over to the Enterprise, they go back over and they arrest Fajo, and they say that his ship had been, his items had been confiscated, and that the ship had been impounded and so forth. So I just always assumed that at some point these items had made their way around, and this is why it's a weird assortment of stuff that Quark is now auctioning off. But it
Damn
was
son.
from
Yeah.
Bajo's collection. Now, again, this has never been confirmed. There's nowhere that says that this is what it's from. None of that. But I just like to think of it that way, and I think other people do as well because of the fact that it's a great connection from Next Gen to Deep Space Nine. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Gotta love Quark when he's auctioning this stuff off. He's trying to get people to pay a little more. All of these funds, all the profits go to the Bajoran Orphan Society, and minus a small fee. So I was like, yeah, we know you, Quark. There's definitely a fee. We know.
Oh, and I also want to talk about how creepy was Nog for in order to get Kukulaka back from Lita, he
Who's supposed?
crawls through the air vent in her room
Oh, is that what he was
and
doing?
yeah, so he's like, so
Ah,
when the scene starts, we see him. She's in bed. It's night. She's asleep. She's got the bear all snuggled up to her, and here's Nog hovering over her
right.
and reaching down to extract the bear. He almost wakes her up, but he manages to get the bear out, and then he sneaks back across the room. And if you notice, he crouches down, he crawls back into the air vent, and closes it behind him.
I missed that.
I didn't miss it, and I was immediately creeped out. I was like,
How
"Bro,
does he know this?
right? Had seriously, how many times have you done this? Like, man,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
didn't like that at all.
I just love how every single thing, if you need an air vent to get somewhere, apparently they just pop up. I mean, I love the Batman games, the Arkham Asylum games, but man, there were enough. Bo- Batman is massive, and the size of Batman-sized vents all over of Arkham and Gotham City is like, okay. I mean, whatever. You think
Well,
everyone would have figured that out by now, and that's where he's coming from, but nope.
now I'll have to admit, if the things that I watched as a kid, TV shows, cartoons, and so forth, I thought that I would have way more involvement crawling through tunnels in my life as an adult. I also thought that quicksand was a global crisis, and I was constantly in fear and on the lookout for quicksand, only to find out that yeah, it's no, it's not like that at all.
Mhm.
So yeah, what's relayed through TV and video games is not in any way an accurate depiction of real life, as we should all already know. But
Right.
yeah, I could see that. Yeah, Batman is this massive crime fighter decked out in all kinds of gear and equipment and whatever else, and he is somehow able to silently, stealthily move through these aluminum vents that have
Yeah.
very little support,
Clunk,
and
clunk,
no
clunk,
one,
clunk, clunk, clunk.
yeah, in this in these turn of the century old buildings, and he's able to
Yeah.
just make it through. Come on.
Yeah.
Unless
Yeah.
Batman is 10 years old, he's not making it.
Right.
An emaciated 10-year-old at that. So
Yeah. Or a Ferengi.
yeah.
Or a Ferengi. Yeah.
Well, any final thoughts? Anything else you'd like to contribute on this episode before we close it out?
I think we should briefly mention this was, I think, the directorial debut of Michael Dorn, of course, Lieutenant
Who played
Worf,
Worf?
or yeah, no, Commander Worf now.
He's Lieutenant
Um,
Commander Worf.
yes, and he was only briefly in this episode at the very beginning when he gets told by Cisco, "All right, everyone's left. You're paroled to go on and do your own thing." And then at the
Yeah.
very end of the episode, after he's gotten his operas back and he's clearly enjoying himself listening to it alone on the Defiant, which I have to say, that'd be so me. I would definitely be the one who's like off on the Defiant by myself,
Oh,
blasting my
yeah.
music at full volume.
I love that ship.
Love it.
I
Yeah.
probably would never leave.
Oh yeah. 100%. Worf definitely got the best gig. I don't like being in the quarters on the station. I want to be private. I want the whole blasted ship to myself. Thank you very much. It's
I'd
like
like to
having your
think
own.
that I'd like to think that someone actually made a full-on Klingon opera and that Michael Dorn has the full recording, and every so
Oh,
often, in the privacy of his, fighter jet or whatever plane it is he's flying, because he's actually a certified pilot. I'd like to
oh,
think that he cranks it up. Like instead of
yeah.
listening to like rock metal or whatever, he's just like jamming out to Klingon opera on a plane by himself. Not all the
Yeah.
time, but every so often when he's feeling particularly Klingon, he
Well,
just
you have to
turns it
say,
on.
yeah. I mean, he had a. There was. It was definitely something we were listening to in the middle of this episode. So someone recorded someone belting out some opera, and it was fun. I mean, every time we listen to it, it always sounds like a unique aspect of
It
Klingon
does. It
culture.
does.
You really like.
That's
What's the Romeo and Juliet? What's the
that's
Agamemnon of.
Kalis and Lucara is the Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
So
what's the classic Klingon opera that we don't know the full story of? Like, it's just in the background. And if we ask Dax, she could tell us everything, but she's never had a chance to tell it on screen to us before.
well, and of course she's not here in this episode,
Yeah,
so we can't even ask her those questions if we wanted to. It's
what is
weird
up
that
with that? Like,
yeah,
it's
again,
why?
it's
Why
gonna
is she
bother me.
gone?
They should say why Dax wasn't here. It's weird that she's not. So but in just again out of curiosity's sake, um, I did take a look on YouTube. There are a couple of listings of Klingon opera. Now, as I understand it, these are basically people who do like Shakespeare, but dressed as Klingons.
Mm.
So, if you're interested, go and check that out. Just do a search for Klingon opera, you'll find it. If you find any good ones, let me know. I'd be willing to check them out. I'm not going to watch all of these. I'm not going to scan all that, whatever. No, but if you
Oh
find
man,
a good one, let me know.
can you
I'd love to
imagine
watch.
a Klingon doing the "to be or not to be" speech from Hamlet? Like,
You know what? If there's going to be any, I'm sure that that's in there. I'm sure
yeah,
there's one. Someone did Hamlet. I'm
yeah,
sure of it.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah. Well, I think on that note, we are going to close this out. Yes, Hamlet in the original Klingon, indeed. Um, Thank you all for listening to us once again. You can find us and follow us anywhere you happen to do your various social medias. If you want responses from us, of course, though, hit us up on Facebook. We'll take your questions and comments there. You can listen to us anywhere you happen to listen to podcasts. I happen to do it on Spotify. And of course, you can tune in like you did this week, every week on YouTube on our channel. So until next time, guys, hope you enjoyed this one. And coming up, the final episode of season 5, A Call to Arms. Can't wait to get into that with you. And then, of course, some more stuff with The Expanse is on the way as well. But again, until next time, take care of yourselves.
Thanks, guys.